Hey kids, Mr. Monty here. We're going to talk about the perspectives of imperialism to help review for our unit test coming up. This is tied into Content Standard 11 here in the state of Ohio for ninth grade. Consequences of imperialism were viewed differently by the colonizers and the colonized. So let's go ahead and get started. What exactly does perspective mean? When we're looking at perspective, basically what we're looking at is point of view. And how different groups of people perceive uh, different events. So when we are looking at, uh, let's say, something from imperialism here, talking about Europe, we're going to look at the European perspective of imperialism. We're also going to look at the perspective from the African side and also from the Indian side. The picture down below kind of does a little illustration of exactly what perspective is. You have the man on the island looking out and seeing a guy out there and thinks it's boat. You have another guy who's in the boat looking over and saying land, and they're both really, really excited. So yes, they are correct. One is a boat. One is a man on land. However, they are both uh, equally excited to see the other. The man on the land is thinking that he's going to get out of there. The man on the boat, who has been drifting through the ocean, is finally finding a place to stop and get some rest. So, if we're looking at the British side first, we'll start there. Throughout class, we looked at the scramble for Africa, which was not only Britain but also other European countries all racing to colonize and take control of different parts of Africa, and that happened for several different reasons. We also looked at how Britain occupied India and how they controlled uh, that territory up until the mid 1900s. We said that India did not gain its independence from Britain until 1947, which in our timeline in class we are not even close to that. But the time in which Britain controlled India is rather long. So, what do you think the British perspective on imperialism would be? And that question should pop up right about now. One of the things that shaped the British perspective on imperialism would be something called nationalism that we talked about in class. This was also one of your vocab terms. It played a pretty large role when it came to building perspectives and the way that people think about imperialism. And nationalism is the sense that people have a very strong sense of patriotism or a sense of pride in their country. The picture here uh, would be a nationalist picture that would get people who were British feeling very proud about the different areas that they have conquered, which says Australia, Canada, India, South Africa, New Zealand. We talked about an event called the Great Rebellion that happened in India. Uh, it's also called the Sepoy Rebellion, and the Brits had taken control of India and its army. And on the next slide, we're going to see a primary source document from the event. So let's go ahead and take a look at that document. So the following is an excerpt from a document called "The Indian Revolt" by Charles Creighton Haswell. So we have a quote here, and I highlighted some of the words that you might not know, and put them down at the bottom so you can see the definitions. So the excerpt says, quote, "On the meeting of the two groups, the horrors of the mutiny were repeated in the city, and every European who could be found was massacred with revolting barbarity. Complete massacre of the ruling race was felt to be the only chance of safety, so no one of the ruling race was spared." Down below it says that mutiny is a rebellion against authority figures. Barbarity means extreme cruelty, and massacre is to brutally slaughter people. Now, on the flip side of this, we're also going to examine the Indian perspective of things. So, what do you think the Indian perspective would be on imperialism? This is an excerpt from a document that was written by Mr. Sahib. I'm not going to try to pronounce the rest of that name. I did not put the name of the document on there because it would give away the perspective. And it says, quote, "The cause of this revolt was not just a simple rifle cartridge. The true cause of this rebellion is the fact that the British are people who want to destroy all religions. They have found for a long time, or they have for a long time, brought out numbers of preachers to spread their own beliefs and convert our people. It is true British ordered Hindus and others of their army to bite cartridges with animal fat on them. Both Hindus and Muslims fear this would violate their religious beliefs. I believe that this was because the British wanted to ruin and utterly destroy the faith of both Hindus and Muslims alike." Now, we're also going to look at the perspectives of imperialism in Africa. A little bit of a different situation over there. Uh, Rebellions happen, but the thing is that the African tribes did not have access to rifles. One of the other things is that the British used what was called the Maxim gun, which was the first rapid fire machine gun, I believe. It said that it could shoot 600 rounds in 1 minute. And they just used that basically to slaughter tribes within Africa. So we're going to look at a political cartoon on the next slide. And the rocks that the men are walking on say a couple different things, and they're repeated. So it says oppression, slavery, brutality, and ignorance. So let's take a look at that. So I zoomed in pretty close as I could on the political cartoon. So if you take a look at the people and the way that they are dressed and the words, I already said what were on the rocks. The words that are on the rocks towards the bottom of the picture are repeated up top. At the very top of the mountain here that they are climbing, with the guy sitting on the gold seat, it says civilization. So essentially, you have two figures who are supposed to represent uh, a couple other countries carrying these people up to civilization. So, what exactly does this picture represent? Now, when we're looking at a political cartoon, the way that people are drawn can really say a lot about the perspective of the artist or the message that they're trying to convey. So if you look at the way the people in the baskets are drawn, you will see that they look a lot different, or they're drawn in a different style than those who are carrying them. And that should really help you kind of understand the different perspective that we're seeing here. Hopefully this was a solid review for you, and it will help you on the test.